The numbers grew in millions, not in thousands, in millions, and it transcended the mighty Atlantic Ocean, and it took hold in England. And once it became known in England and became a religion in England, it started to move around the world. From 1853 onward, many attempts were made to organize the religion of spiritualism. And they did organize finally, and they lasted just 8 years. And then, again, into obscurity. So, 45 years after the advent of modern spiritualism, individuals and churches and state organizations became a reality, and they came forward with representation that would wake up others around them. In 1893, a new organization was formed, and that was the National Spiritualist Association of Churches of the United States of America. That organization came about to be an umbrella for all spiritualists. Due to the action of 5 men from Washington, D.C., who sent out subscriptions, they decided to come together at the convention in Chicago and to discuss organizing once again. And it was at that time that finally it was agreed that spiritualism was not only a philosophy and a science that maintained mediumship as well as healing, but that it was a religion. And so in November of 1893, documents were filed in Washington, D.C., registering the NSA as a religious body. It took them 6 years of discussion, some quite heated. You know, we all have our own opinions, don't we? Well, they did too. But finally, in 1899, they formed a Declaration of Principle, which would be the philosophy upon which our religion, our science, and also our philosophy would rest. So it brings us the purpose of understanding that we on this life are here to serve each other. I hear so often, I'd like to know why I'm here. And I often say, you don't need a reading. You need to come to the reality you're here to serve your brother and your sister. It's that simple. This was recorded by the prophets of old, and it has become known as the Golden Rule. And if we just take the Golden Rule and set aside everything else, we will be able to follow the basic principle of spiritualism. It reminds us of our responsibility, not only to ourselves, but also to others, and that we are all one. We cannot separate one from the other. We are as if an ocean. Each drop makes up the whole. And so it is important that today we come to terms with the Golden Rule and make it a part of our life. Not only on Sunday, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And when you're driving down that highway and people make ugly signs at you, just turn to them and say, I love you. It's amazing. Just the thought vibration goes out into the atmosphere. And if all of those positive thoughts would go out, can you imagine what we could do with our world? We could bring it back to what it was meant to be. We must become aware of the fact that each of us is here to grow into our highest consciousness while on earth. It's up to us to reach out, to bring ourselves into that conscious awareness of the spirit side of life. Maybe we all don't care to be mediums, but that's okay. It's important that we live the philosophy. That is the golden strand of spiritualism. And if we live our philosophy, we are then spiritual. You know, there is a difference between being spiritual and being a spiritualist. One's a title, and one means you're elevating your consciousness. So, as the years passed, new understanding came into the organization. And in 1909, they added 2 principles. And you know, the principles are there to be modified as we grow, because we are here on this earth to grow, and we are here to study and to learn. We do not have to agree with everyone's thought, but we should take the thought and bring it into our conscious awareness and think about it, and maybe it could apply to us. So we got one more principle 10 years later. And finally, we have our 9 principles, which have been modified many times over the years, in little ways, a word here or there. And probably one of the biggest changes was putting healing into our 9th principle. Years passed on and came to be, you know, people were bringing sheets of paper with hymns on them. And, well, amazing, we need a hymnal. And so a group of the men who were very musically oriented got together and in 1911 published the first hymnal. Well, don't we need some guidelines that people could pick up and see? Of course we do. So a manual was published. And then, of course, you know, we have children who are learning, and we also have adults who go to Lyceum, so we need a Lyceum manual. So can you see the progression and the evolution of spiritualism? And we're not through yet. This story is interesting to any reader of the many books that have been written about modern spiritualism and about Hydesville. But while it's just an interesting story to some, this humble beginning made an impact on the whole world. Of course it did. While other religions teach of an afterlife, only spiritualism carries high the banner of proof of that survival by means of spirit communication through the vehicle that has been termed a medium, a term which is now becoming outdated. And it's being substituted with words such as communicator, an intermediary, and other words that mean one who connects with both sides of life. Yes, it's 161 years since that humble beginning, and we reflect on those 2 small children and that man who was murdered for a mere $500 and his body buried in the cellar wall of a house. And 56 years later, remember, during all that time, there were people who were questioning spiritualism. They were questioning the truth of communication. And they questioned that darling little story. But guess what? The house deteriorated and the east wall caved in. And there was the skeleton of the peddler and the peddler's pack. And today, that pack is on view in the museum in Lilydale, New York. Today, as every day, I know that the Fox family has been drawing nigh to the earth, as well as our other spirit loved ones. And of course it would be so, because as we talk about anything, people on the other side who are interested in that subject come round and about us. So we welcome them, and we thank them for the past. The past. The past is gone. The past is yesterday. But the memory lingers on through spiritualism. And it's our task as the spiritualists of today to prepare the way for the spiritualists of tomorrow. It's up to us to take that banner and wave it high. Spiritualism, my friends, is forever.